Confession: I spent 6 months telling my boyfriend's brother every intimate failure of our relationship. People assume I was venting. I wasn't. I cataloged our bedroom disasters with surgical precision for reasons that make me sick. Now both brothers are silent. Mark erased me completely and Jake looks through me like I'm glass. My mistake wasn't the confession. It was what came after, what I orchestrated while playing the lonely girlfriend. Everyone thinks they understand. They don't. I promised I'd never tell the full story, but silence is rotting me. So here's everything: the texts, the truck, the betrayal that rewired 2 families. By the end, you'll see why I'm not the villain they made me, even if I'm not innocent. The whole disaster started with Mark's back. He'd thrown it out lifting weights, which turned our already tepid sex life into a museum exhibit, preserved behind glass, untouchable. For 3 months, he winced whenever I touched him. For 3 months, I became a ghost in our own bedroom, my skin hungering for contact that wasn't a polite peck on the cheek. I tried talking to him. Really, I did. I'd wait until he'd swallowed his 3rd beer when his face went soft and vulnerable, and I'd whisper how I missed being close. He'd pat my hand and promise he was seeing a chiropractor. The appointments happened. The touching didn't. Jake lived 3 blocks over, Mark's younger brother with the crooked smile and the habit of showing up when Mark wasn't home. He'd come by to borrow tools, to ask about Mom's birthday, to see if I wanted company while grading papers. I'm a high school English teacher and Jake was remodeling his kitchen, so he claimed he needed advice on something. The excuses were translucent, but I was starving. I let him come. Maybe a small voice whispered I was letting him come for reasons I wasn't ready to name. The first time I mentioned our sex life to Jake, it slipped out accidentally. He'd asked how things were going and the word fine got stuck in my throat. He saw my expression, that particular grief I couldn't mask, and leaned forward. You can tell me, he said. I'm not just his brother, I'm your friend. That word friend became my permission slip. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Jake's questions grew more specific. He wanted details. How often did Mark touch me? What exactly was boring? Did I fantasize about other people? I answered everything, my words pouring out like poison I needed to expel. It felt therapeutic. It felt dangerous. It felt like finally being seen. Mark noticed my phone buzzing more frequently. Who's texting you at midnight? He asked one Tuesday, his voice carrying that edge I'd learned to fear. Just the group chat with my teacher friends. I lied, my thumb hovering over Jake's message. Tell me more about what you need. Mark rolled over, his back a wall between us. I texted Jake back. I told him about the last time Mark and I had sex 3 weeks prior, how Mark had finished in 6 minutes and fallen asleep while I stared at the ceiling counting water stains. Jake's response came immediately: you deserve so much more than that. My stomach flipped. I should have stopped there. Should have deleted his number. Should have done anything but what I did, which was save his message and read it 17 times before sunrise. This wasn't cheating, I told myself. This was survival. Mark had abandoned me physically, I was just finding a way to breathe. The next weekend, Mark left for a fishing trip with his buddies. Jake showed up with pizza and bourbon, claiming he needed a break from his kitchen renovation. We sat on the porch swing, our thighs touching in the dark. The conversation drifted to intimacy, then to specific acts Mark wouldn't try. Jake's voice went low and serious. A woman like you needs to be worshipped, he said, his hand finding mine in the darkness. I let it stay there for 3 seconds too long before pulling away. You're Mark's brother, I whispered, but even I could hear the lack of conviction. That doesn't make me blind, he replied. The next day my coworker Sarah caught me smiling at my phone. You're glowing, she said. Who is he? When I insisted it was nothing, her expression shifted. Be careful, hun, emotional affairs leave deeper scars than physical ones. A week later, Jake called me crying. His girlfriend had left him. She said I'm emotionally unavailable, he sobbed into the phone. But I'm not, I'm just emotionally involved with someone else. The silence that followed was deafening. I knew what he meant. He knew I knew. We can't do this, I said, but my voice cracked. Can't do what? Talk, care about each other. Jake's tone turned sharp. You've been more intimate with me than any woman in years. Don't pretend this is just friendship. That night I did something I hadn't done in months. I initiated sex with Mark. I climbed on top of him while he slept, desperate to prove to myself that I could still want my boyfriend. He woke up confused, pushed me off gently. My back, remember? I went to the bathroom and sobbed. When I came out, my phone had 3 messages from Jake. Are you okay? I'm here. I love you. I didn't correct him. I didn't tell him to stop. Instead, I screenshotted his messages, saved them to a hidden folder on my phone labeled Journal Entries. Evidence of my desirability. Proof that someone wanted me. I turned off my phone and went to sleep on the couch. The truth bomb dropped at Mark's birthday dinner. Jake showed up with a date, a pretty blonde who laughed at his jokes. I felt rage bloom in my chest. When she excused herself to the bathroom, Jake leaned over. I'm trying to move on like you obviously want me to. I never said that, I hissed. You never had to, your silence was your answer. Mark, drunk on craft beer, slung his arm around my shoulders. What are you two whispering about? Nothing, we said in unison a little too quickly. Mark's eyes narrowed. He'd always been perceptive about his brother. Passing the potatoes, his mother paused. Jake, you look at her like, she didn't finish. But her eyes flickered between us and I saw the first seed of suspicion planted. But that dinner was just the beginning. The real betrayal came later in the cab of Jake's truck when I finally stopped pretending I was the good guy. The next morning, Mark confronted me. My mom thinks something's going on between you and Jake. I laughed, the sound hollow in our kitchen. Your mom also thinks essential oils cure diabetes. She said we should all have dinner, clear the air. Mark was studying my face, looking for tells. I told her we would. That Friday, we sat around his parents' dining table, Jake across from me, Mark's mother watching like a hawk. Halfway through the meal, she asked Jake about his new girlfriend. It didn't work out, he mumbled. Maybe you should date someone closer to home, she said, her eyes on me. Jake stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. I need air. That night I posted a photo on Instagram of Mark and me from last summer, captioned so grateful for my love. My first time using social media to manufacture the happiness I was actively destroying. I found Jake on the back porch, smoking a cigarette he never usually smoked. She knows, he said. She suspects, I corrected. There's a difference. Jake turned to me, his face raw. Is there? Because I think I've been lying to myself for months, pretending this was just talking. He kissed me then, not a gentle, exploratory kiss. A desperate, starving one. I kissed him back for 5 seconds, 10 before I pushed him away. We can't. But we already had. The line between emotional and physical had been blurred beyond recognition. I went home and deleted every text from Jake, scrubbing my phone like a crime scene, but I couldn't scrub my brain. I couldn't erase the way his mouth felt, the way he groaned my name against my lips. Mark found me crying in the shower. What's wrong? Nothing, I sobbed. Everything. He held me, his back still stiff, his embrace careful. We'll get through whatever this is. I let him comfort me, the fraud in me growing teeth. 3 days later, Jake texted, I'm outside. It was midnight, Mark was snoring, I snuck out in my pajamas, bare feet on cold concrete. Jake sat in his truck, engine running. I can't do this anymore, he said. Either we tell him or I go away forever. I climbed into the passenger seat, the scent of him wrapping around me like a noose. You can't leave, you're his brother. Then we tell him. No, I was firm, definitive. Absolutely not. Jake's hand found my knee. Then what are we doing? What were we doing? I was collecting evidence of my own desirability. I was weaponizing intimacy. I was destroying a family one confession at a time. I told him none of this. Instead, I let his hand stay. Then I let it travel up my thigh. Then I let him kiss me again, deeper this time, his fingers finding the edge of my panties. The truck's cabin became our confessional booth, our crime scene, our church. We didn't have sex that night, but we did everything else. And in the dark, with my boyfriend's brother's mouth on my neck, I told myself this was still somehow Mark's fault for ignoring me. I let him take a photo of me, my shirt pulled up, my face turned toward the camera. For when you can't be here, he said. I agreed. Creating evidence I'd later wish I could burn. The next morning I showered for 45 minutes, scrubbing my skin raw. Mark commented on the water bill. I told him the heating element was acting up. Another lie, smooth as butter. The spiral continued. Jake and I began meeting in his truck regularly. It was always the same pattern. He'd text, I'd sneak out, we'd cross another line. Each time I told myself it would be the last. Each time I knew I was lying. At work, my performance suffered. I gave a student detention for asking a question I was too distracted to answer. My principal called me in. Is everything okay at home? She asked, her concern genuine. Perfect, I said, my smile a mask that barely covered my teeth. But the truck was only part of it. The worst thing happened later at the cabin. When I was so far gone I convinced myself the rules didn't apply anymore. Mark's mother called a family meeting. That was the phrase she used, like we were a corporation. Family meeting, Tuesday, dinner. Her voice on the voicemail was steel. I tried to get out of it. Mark insisted. If there's nothing going on, then there's nothing to hide. The dining room felt like a courtroom. Mark's father, a retired judge, sat at the head of the table. Jake and I took opposite ends, a battlefield between us. Mark's mother served lasagna like she was building a fortress on my plate, then she dropped the bomb. Jake, we found these in your truck. She produced a plastic bag. Inside were my panties, lacy black ones I'd reported missing weeks ago. My entire body went cold. I'd wondered where they'd gone, now I knew. Mark stared at the bag. Those are Anna's. Yes, his mother said. They are. The room tilted. I grabbed the table edge. I can explain, but I couldn't. There was no explanation that didn't involve the truth. Jake stood up. They're not hers, they're my girlfriend's. You don't have a girlfriend, his father said quietly. You have a brother's fiancée. We weren't engaged. But we might as well have been. Everyone had assumed. Everyone had been planning. Mark looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. Anna, I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The truth had calcified in my throat. I think you should leave, his mother said to me. Jake, you stay. Mark followed me to the car. Tell me it's not true. Tell me my mother is crazy. I stood there, the lie trembling on my lips. I could have saved it all right then. Could have blamed Jake, could have said they'd been planted, could have done anything but what I did. What I did was cry, no words, just tears that said everything. Mark's face went slack. He stumbled backward like I'd shot him. How long? 2 months, I whispered. Almost. He nodded, that sharp, ugly nod people do when their world detonates. Get your things, be gone before I get home. I drove to my sister's house, but she wouldn't let me in. Mom told me what happened, she said through the crack in the door. I can't, Anna, I just can't. My support system evaporated like morning dew. Friends I'd known for years stopped returning calls. My own mother sent a text, I'm disappointed in you. That's worse than anger. I checked into a motel, the kind with hourly rates and flickering neon. I sat on the scratchy bedspread and stared at my phone. 17 missed calls from Jake. None from Mark. Jake's voicemails were frantic. I'm so sorry. My mom was snooping. She always snoops. We can fix this. We can run away. Run away. As if running could unbreak what I'd broken. I didn't call him back. I didn't call anyone. For 3 days I existed in that liminal space between who I'd been and what I'd become. I showered in water that never got hot. I ate chips from the vending machine. I watched reality TV and cried when contestants talked about their families. On the 4th day, Mark texted, I packed your things. They're on the porch. If you're not here by tomorrow, I'm donating them. I drove over at dusk, hopping to avoid him. He was sitting on the steps, my boxes stacked beside him like tiny coffins. Did you love him? He asked. No, I said. It was the truth. I hadn't loved Jake. I'd loved the way he made me feel. I'd loved the reflection of myself in his eyes, the version of Anna who was desirable and complex, not the invisible woman Mark had stopped seeing. Then why? Mark's voice broke. I wanted to tell him about the nights I'd spent alone, about the way his back had become a wall, about how I'd tried and he'd just stopped, but that would have been another excuse. I was fresh out of those. Because I could, I said. The honesty felt like swallowing glass. Mark nodded. Get your shit and go. I loaded my boxes into my car. As I drove away, I saw Jake pull up. He got out, called my name. I didn't stop. In the rearview mirror, I watched the two brothers face each other on the lawn where they'd played as kids. They stood so far apart they might as well have been different continents. That was the last time I saw them together. Jake kept calling. I blocked his number. He showed up at my school parking lot, leaning against my car. We need to talk, he said. There's nothing left to say. You told me you loved me. I told you a lot of things. His face hardened. I'm going to tell Mark everything. The whole truth. He already knows the important parts. Does he know you said I was better? Does he know you compared us? Does he know you kept a list of every way I outperformed him? I got in my car and locked the doors. Jake pounded on the window. You can't just erase me, but I could. I'd been erasing myself for months, one confession at a time. But what I was really searching for was any sign that my final secret had been discovered, the one I'd managed to keep even as everything else burned. The revelation came in fragments, not all at once. First, the easy parts. Yes, I'd slept with Jake. Yes, multiple times. Yes, in Mark's truck, in Jake's kitchen, in a motel off Route 9. Yes, I'd said things about Mark that were cruel and specific and designed to make Jake feel superior. But the worst part, the thing that makes me unforgivable, is this: I did it on purpose. Every confession about our boring sex life was calculated. Every vulnerable moment, every tear, every "I just need someone to understand" was engineered. I wasn't a woman driven to desperation by neglect. I was a woman who discovered a dark power and decided to use it. See, Mark's back injury wasn't the beginning. It was just the excuse I needed. 6 months before I ever texted Jake, I found something. A receipt in Mark's gym bag for a jewelry store. $3,000. I'd assumed it was for me. Our anniversary was coming up. I waited, excited, planning my reaction. The anniversary came. He gave me a subscription box for wine. The receipt remained unaccounted for. 2 weeks later, I saw a charge on our shared credit card for a hotel room 40 minutes away. Mark said it was for a work conference. But his work doesn't have conferences. He's a construction foreman. I didn't confront him. I did something worse. I started keeping notes. Every late night, every mysterious text he shielded from view, every time he claimed his phone died. I built a case against him in a journal I hid under our mattress, but Mark was careful. I had suspicions, not proof. And I needed proof, or maybe I just needed revenge. Jake had always been there, the younger brother who looked at me a little too long, who remembered my coffee order, who called me Anna in a way that felt like a secret. I'd always pretended not to notice. But when Mark's distance became a pattern, when I realized the jewelry receipt probably wasn't for me, I made a decision. If Mark was cheating, I would too. But I'd do it better. I'd do it with the person who would hurt him most. So I started creating reasons to see Jake. The accidental confessions were anything but. I tested the waters, seeing how he'd react to my vulnerability. He reacted exactly as I'd hoped, like a man who'd been waiting for permission. The sex complaints were just the gateway. I needed Jake to feel like he was rescuing me, that he was better than his brother in every way, so I gave him comparisons. Mark lasts 6 minutes. Mark won't go down on me. Mark doesn't care if I finish. All true, by the way. But the way I delivered them, the timing, the tears, the trembling voice was theater. I was directing a play in which I was both victim and victor, and Jake fell for it completely. He confessed his feelings exactly on schedule. He started the affair like a lamb to slaughter. But here's where my plan went off the rails. I started believing my own performance. I started feeling like the victim. I started thinking I deserved this, that Mark's negligence was a crime punishable by family annihilation. The truck was my idea, Mark's truck specifically. I told Jake it would be poetic justice. He hesitated, but I was already unbuttoning his jeans. He cares more about this truck than me, I whispered. Take me in it. So he did, and I stared at the dash camera the whole time, knowing it was recording, knowing I'd have proof. I wasn't just cheating. I was creating evidence for a confrontation I didn't know how to have. I kept the footage on a USB drive in my purse. I told myself it was insurance. If Mark ever confessed his affair, I'd have mine, bigger, better, more devastating. But Mark never confessed because Mark wasn't cheating. The jewelry receipt was for his mother's birthday bracelet. The hotel charge was for his best friend's bachelor party that he was planning as a surprise. I destroyed a family over assumptions and revenge fantasies. The panties in Jake's truck, I'd planted them. Not deliberately, but I'd left them there during our last encounter, knowing his mother snooped. I wanted to be caught. I wanted the bomb to detonate so I could stop holding it. When Mark asked if I loved Jake, I said no. That was true. I never loved him. I used him. He was a weapon I aimed at Mark's heart, and I fired it with precision. The worst part, I'd do it again, not the affair, but the need to feel powerful, to feel seen, to stop being invisible. That need is still in me, curled like a snake. Mark found the USB drive when he packed my things. He texted me a screenshot of the video file. "You're a monster," he wrote. "You planned this." I didn't reply. He was right. Jake found out about the planning through Mark. His final email, the one about moving to Oregon, was sent after he'd seen the video, after he realized every vulnerable moment I'd shared had been calculated. That the woman he thought he was rescuing had been holding the knife the entire time. The family didn't just fracture because I cheated. They fractured because I weaponized intimacy itself. I made trust into a bomb. I turned love into a game I was determined to win, even when I was playing against myself. The fallout was swift and complete. Mark sold the house we'd bought together. He got a new number. He blocked me on every platform. His new girlfriend, the physical therapist, moved in 2 months after I left. My friend Sarah sent me a screenshot of their housewarming party. Everyone was there, his parents, his friends, Jake, who'd flown back for it. I stared at the photo for an hour, zooming in on Jake's face. He looked hollow. I recognized that look. It was the one I'd seen in the mirror. My principal officially terminated my contract after the investigation. "Your personal life has made you a liability," she said, not unkindly. "Parents don't want their children taught by someone who," she trailed off, but I knew the end of that sentence. "Someone who manipulates, someone who seduces brothers, someone who can't be trusted." I moved back to my hometown, but news travels fast in small towns. The local grocery store clerk whispers when I check out. The librarian gives me disapproving looks. My high school boyfriend saw me at the gas station and literally turned his back. Social media became a minefield. Mark's cousin posted a meme about homewrecking hoes and tagged me in it. I had to deactivate my accounts. The last time I checked, Jake's new girlfriend had posted a photo of them together with the caption, "So grateful for a man who knows the difference between real love and manipulation." 200 likes. Comments full of heart emojis, and "You deserve this." I don't even know what I deserve anymore. My mother has me seeing a therapist who specializes in relational trauma, which is a nice way of saying women who fuck up their lives and need help fixing their brains. Dr. Chen is patient. She asks questions I don't want to answer. What need were you trying to meet? What would you tell your younger self? Do you think you're capable of healthy love? I cry a lot in her office. I cry about Mark, about Jake, about the family that took me in and watched me burn their house down. I cry about who I was and who I thought I was and the massive gap between those people. But here's the thing, I'm still me. The same brain that orchestrated that disaster is the one typing this. I still catch myself performing victimhood when I'm not. I still feel that snake of need uncurling when I feel invisible. Dr. Chen says that's the work, recognizing the pattern before I act on it. I haven't dated anyone since. I'm terrified of what I'm capable of. My sister lets me babysit my niece sometimes, but only when supervised. "I trust you," she says, "but I don't trust your patterns yet." The unexpected consequence, the one that haunts me most, is that Jake and Mark are closer now. The shared betrayal created a bond between them that my presence had somehow prevented. They talk every week. They go fishing together. They rebuilt the family I fractured by becoming their common enemy. I became the ghost that unites them. My self-awareness comes in waves. Some days I see myself clearly, a woman so afraid of being powerless that she grabbed power by any means necessary. Other days I still feel like the victim, like Mark's distance somehow excused my nuclear response. But the truth is messier. The truth is I'm both. I'm the woman who was neglected and the woman who retaliated with a cruelty that shocked even me. I'm the victim of my own need and the villain of their story. Doctor, Chen says I need to integrate these parts, that humans contain multitudes, that bad actions don't make bad people. I'm not sure I believe her. What I do know is that I can never untell those confessions. I can never unplant those panties. I can never unruin Thanksgiving dinner or Mark's trust or Jake's ability to believe women who say they're vulnerable. I can only sit in this small apartment, pay my rent with money from a remote copywriting job that doesn't require references, and try to figure out who I am without an audience. I'm telling this story now because last week Mark's mother died. Heart attack sudden. The obituary listed her children Mark and Jake. It listed their spouses, Mark's fiancée, the physical therapist, and Jake's wife, the woman from Oregon. It didn't list me, though I'd been family for 5 years. My mother sent the obituary with a note, "You should know." I wasn't invited to the funeral, of course not, but I drove past the church anyway, watched the procession from across the street. Mark and Jake walked side by side, supporting their father. They looked like brothers again, united in grief. That's when I realized the full scope of what I'd destroyed. Not just a relationship, not just trust. I'd removed myself from a family that, however dysfunctional, had loved me. I'd become a ghost story they tell at holidays. Remember Anna, that girl who? The end of that sentence is always a shudder. The moral ambiguity is this: I still don't know if I was evil or just broken. I don't know if Mark's distance caused my affair or if my affair was inevitable, a flaw in my character that would have revealed itself eventually. Dr. Chen says it's not either or. I say that's therapist bullshit that avoids the question. What have I learned? That I'm capable of terrible things. That intimacy can be a weapon. That the line between victim and perpetrator is thin and porous, and I crossed it without even noticing. That forgiveness from others is irrelevant if I can't forgive myself, and I can't. Not yet, maybe not ever. So tell me, am I the villain who destroyed a family or just a woman who got what she deserved? The answer